and I am going to introduce our first speaker for this evening. Rosena Fung grew up and is based in Toronto, Canada. Her first graphic novel, Living with Viola, is published by Annick Press. Her illustration clients include The Globe and Mail, The Boston Globe, Chronic Review of Higher Education, CBC Arts, plan sponsor, Massinova. You can help me.
It's Maisonneuve.
Yes. Yep. Bust Magazine, Chickadee Magazine, Swerve Magazine, Tridel Corporation, and Toronto Transit Commission. When she's not drawing, Rosena can be found teaching illustration, vending at zine fairs. We all know zines are the best, and going to the library. Her activities are reading, eating snacks, who doesn't love that, cats, and learning to play the guitar. Thank you so much for joining us, Rosena. I'm freakishly excited.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I will do a screen share now, just to show you. Yes, okay, I think that's okay. I hope it's all good. Okay. I just want to give everyone this like a little like behind the scene about living with Viola. So this is me. So I am based in Toronto. I grew up in Toronto as well. And so I wrote and drew Living with Viola. I'm also a cartoonist and illustrator. So this is just some of the work that I've done, just so you can see, like, I work for all the clients that mentioned. Maisonneuve is a French, it's based in Montreal, which is like a French-speaking, English and French-speaking province, or city in a French province in Canada. So these are just a few other things that I've done as well. And yeah, so Living with Viola is my first book. I'm very excited about it. It came out last year. I can't believe, oh no, oh my gosh, a year and a half ago. Oh my God, I can't believe it. So it's a whirlwind. And then, so just a little bit of background. So it's basically, it follows a story about Livy. She is about to start a new school, completely new school. She's very scared. And she's about to start grade 6. She doesn't know anyone. So the book follows her navigating, making new friends and like, like adapting to a new school while also balancing family expectations and family pressures as well. And then it's also, Livy has a shadowy twin character who follows her around everywhere, looks like her, and her name is Viola. And basically Viola amplifies all of her deepest like insecurities, her doubts, and says all these mean negative things about her and to her. And so Viola is a personification of Livy's anxiety. So this book is about Livy learning how to live with Viola, how to manage life with Viola, because she can't get like, in general, we can't get rid of anxiety. You just can't like push it away. But she learns how to live with Viola and therefore learning to live with her anxiety. So those are the lessons that she learns throughout, while also making new friends and like, learning about what she likes as well. So just a little, where did it all start? I was very lucky to have been approached by an incredible editor. Her name is Sarah Marie McMahon, and she works for Annick Press, and she said, I like your work a lot. She saw on me Instagram, would you like to make a book? And I was like, I would love to make a book. That would be amazing. I love comics so much. I've always loved comics, reading. I love reading. Oh my God, I love books, everything. So it's like a dream. And so I started out with me doing these short little comics to try to flesh out these characters. She had told me like, think about what story is important to you. What is it that you want to talk about? And I had a bunch of ideas, but talking about anxiety was definitely, it was high. And obviously it was the one we went with. And it's because it's something that I went through. Like I literally, when I was in grade 6, I started feeling a lot of things that I didn't understand. And it wasn't just puberty. It was just like, I was scared all the time and I didn't know who to talk to. I did talk to my parents, which is a different thing because Livy takes some time before she does. But I did. But when I was growing up, which would have been like the late 90s, early 2000s, the discourse for mental health was not as prominent as it is now. So I'm very happy that things have changed a lot. But at the time, I was just scared and I thought it was abnormal. I didn't know what was happening, and my parents were super supportive, but they also were sort of at a loss as well. So it took me a while before I was diagnosed. It was not until I was about 16 until they were like, you have anxiety and panic disorder. And when I found out, it was actually kind of a huge relief because I was like, oh, I finally understand understand. And it was also like, I'm not by myself. I didn't feel so alone. And so I wrote this book. I wanted to tell that story for one, but because it's my own story, and I tend to plumb the experiences of my life to write stories and comics because it's easier that way. But also just because I don't, you know, I don't want a young or an older reader to wait before you know, looking for help. Like asking for help is something that I find difficult myself. So, and I don't want someone to hold back thinking, you know, there's something wrong, or, you know, because there's always someone who can help you whatever age you are at. So I want them to, like, you know, find that sooner rather than later. And also, like, I think I'm hoping that is helpful to, you know, if a young reader may not be able to articulate something they're feeling, if they have anxiety, they can point to the book and say, this is how it feels, right? And hopefully it can help someone understand. Or conversely, if someone doesn't have any experience with anxiety, but they can get an idea, oh, like exactly like windows and mirrors, right? Like someone can get an idea of like, oh, I understand now what so-and-so is saying when they say they feel a certain way. So I'm just hoping it's like an anchor for everyone. And just to talk about it, but also I'm hoping because it's entertaining and like fun. So we started with these little comics, and then came up with a script. It's kind of like writing a movie script, and then it's a lot of drawing. It's just like draw all the pages into rough, and then I have to go into sketches, and then I go into inking. I do everything by hand. That happens. That happens sometimes, unfortunately. Anyways, but I color everything digitally, so everything is like a digital format anyways for printing, so it's okay. So I do all these different color studies, character studies, and then so any like these kind of mistakes are easily fixable once it's digital, thank God. And yeah, I do character studies here, different like characters, like her friend, her teacher, and her parents, Libby's, I mean. So just trying to figure out like who they are by drawing them a lot. This is my studio. I'm sitting here right now. Even just looking at this photo, it's kind of dark. Just like talking about the lighting in my place needs more, I need better lighting. But anyway, I love color and I love things and I love toys. So as you can see, there's lots of it happening here. I like to surround myself with it. Oh, and then there's my cat. It's actually about her almost her dinner time. She's kind of hovering around. But anyway, hopefully she won't bother. I drink a lot of bubble tea. I drank a lot. Me and my editor did a lot of it like while working on the book. And these are all of my favorite things. And you know, a lot of people ask like, why is there so much food in the book? Like, I was like, because I love food. I love it so much. I want to draw as much of it as possible. So that's why. And some people have also asked, like kids, they're very cute. They're like, are you Libby? And I'm like, I'm not Libby exactly, but I mean, a lot of your experiences are my own. And a lot of things that she likes are things that I like because I love drawing them. So she loves plushies, she loves reading, she loves Chinese food, she like bubble tea. Anyway, so just to wrap it up. So I'm very happy and lucky. I feel very privileged to have been able to tell this story, and that people also enjoy reading it. I'm really grateful that it is resonating with people. I didn't, you know, when I was younger, I thought very much like, oh, why would anyone want to read a book about me? You know, what I don't have anything important or anything interesting to say, but I think everyone has a story to tell, and I think it's always interesting to hear what they have to say. And I'm very grateful for many other people sharing their stories with me too. So I'm very excited and very honored to be able to like be part of bookmaking because I love books so much. It's like honestly my favorite thing ever, besides drawing and crafts and food. But anyways, okay, I'm gonna stop screen sharing, so I'll come up and then I'd love to answer like any questions you may have. I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, so I'm back. Yeah, so yes.
Thank you. That's so great. So I've got a copy. I straight stole this copy from one of the book discussion sets that we have at the Service Center. For everyone here to know, we have 3 sets at the Service Center that can be booked up to a year in advance. I saw that someone in the chat said that they were hoping to use this book and Hollow Fires for their school's annual book fest. So don't be surprised if you hear from Connecticut
Yay.
a little more often. But so you said that someone came to you and was like, hi, write a book, please. Did you ever think about publishing your own like full novel while you were doing all the other illustration work?
Yeah, that is a great question. So I have always loved comics since I don't know, I was a child. I learned how to read from Archie comics and I read so many. And I've always wanted to write my own comic as well. But I didn't Writing comics, okay, so it took 3 years to write this. So and like, you know, I think it's not surprising that any book takes at least a year or longer to write. So it takes some time. And I was trying to make choices about my life in general and my career. So I went to art school later in life. So I graduated from high school. I went to University of Toronto. I did my master's there, and I just wasn't really happy. But I didn't want to pursue art right away because I thought it wasn't stable. In fact, that is actually a point like in the book, because like
Sure
Libby's dad
is.
is like, art is not a stable thing. Like that's literally my life. My parents have always been supportive, but like they have also like, especially my dad has always been like, be great if you were a doctor. But anyways, and I'm like, oh, that's never gonna happen. I get so squeamish with like blood or whatever. But there was always that pressure, and I thought, okay, no, I shouldn't pursue art. It's not stable. It's not good, you know, whatever. And so, but it took some time, and I finally did. I'm like, you know what? Nothing else is making me happy. I'm gonna do this. So whatever. I'm old now. I get to make my choices. So I did, and I'm happy that I did. And I studied illustration, and I was doing illustration work as well as working another like full-time job. And even then, I was still like, I really want to make a comic, but I knew that would have to mean sacrifices in terms of like time and where to put my efforts to, and I still have to make money. Like I have like, you know, I had a student loan, I have like debt, I have rent to pay, and so taking the time off to write a book was kind of a leap that I wasn't really quite prepared for immediately after art school. So it took some time, but I mean, about like 5 years after, I was like, you know what, I've been doing illustration work, I'm still working, I really want to do this. So I was just about to start like putting together my own book proposals. And then when my editor came to me, it was really like, what's the word? Fortuitous? Serendipitous. Like it just happened when I decided like, I'm gonna do a comic now, I don't care anymore. And then like a month later, she's like, hey, would you like to do this comic? And it just worked out that way. I'm very lucky, and she is so great. I love her so much. I'm working with her right now on another book I'm really happy about. Yeah. But even if she hadn't approached me, I probably would have gone ahead and like started pitching anyways, because I think I was at that stage. I was ready.
You were
So
ready.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Listen, the universe does what the universe does.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the universe was ready for you. That's
Yes,
awesome.
I know.
Oh my gosh. So we actually just, we have another question from someone in the chat who said, I loved the book. In addition to calling attention to anxiety, you developed a realistic character who also makes mistakes in her decisions about others. Her interactions with her friends are genuine in their honesty. Was it difficult to create Viola's character, considering how you had to develop her personality as well as her anxiety, which you personified, which I thought was really interesting?
That's a really good question. That was really good because, you know, with Livy, because I based so much of her life on my life, I remember having discussions with my editor being like, everyone isn't perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect person, and they will make choices that are not nice. It's not that they're bad people. We just sometimes make not the greatest choices, not because we're intentionally trying to be malicious, but just because we don't think about something else, right? And that was a storyline that we really were trying to work towards. That I think ended up being pretty good, where she unintentionally sort of like slights Charlotte, like one of her friends, without really thinking about it. She's just like, oh, but I want to do this instead, and like, but it's kind of upsetting, and like we do make mistakes, and I think it's important to be accountable to that as well, for our choices, whatever they might be, right? Whether our intentions are good or not, or just not even thinking about it. So working on her personality was interesting. I don't know, like I think when I approach all characters now, I just think about them as like, I have to make sure they're as nuanced as possible. Like everyone will make choices, and sometimes they will make not great choices, in depending on the situation, but like there's no, I try to and me and my editor were trying to work away from like one-dimensional characters, like this person is outgoing and that's all that they are, right? So even if it only shows up for like, I don't know, like a page or whatever, I already in my head, I'm like, well, this is what their whole thing is like, right? And then I feel like it's important to treat all human beings like that in general, but like all characters. So working with so that was me and my editor developing Livy. And then in terms of like Viola, when I was developing her, for her, it was kind of clear though, I think when I was writing her, I'm like, she's just mean. She is just like mean and she says nasty thing. And it's not too difficult either because Viola is anxiety personified, and I have anxiety and I still do because, as I said, we can't get rid of it. But I don't actually envision, there's not actually like, I don't see myself like a separate person. I wanted to make it easier for like young readers to understand how it can be very so powerful, right, by drawing it as a person. But like that, those things that she says are very like much like my own, the things that I say in my own head, right, like the things that are very negative. And so writing her was it was, I wouldn't say it's easy because like I had to go into like some deep dark places, but like at the same time I could capture that voice really well because I'm so used to it.
You did a good job. No, it was, as someone, I also have anxiety, and I was telling Ashley when I finished the book, I was like, these pages are stressful, like, but in an appropriate way. Like you found a balance, and you found a balance between the art and the illustration, right? So there, I read and read a lot of graphic novels, a lot of like web comics. I was looking at one of the pictures and I was like, oh, Lord Olympus, love that book. Oh, like, so started reading that when it was on Webtoon. So what was it like for you? I know you showed some pictures because it wasn't just like the words of Viola that were angry. It was just like the way that they were put together. Like they would be big, and sometimes they'd be turned into a ball and thrown at her. Right. And then I noticed that the back panels would turn into like this blue and like these darker colors, which really stood out, especially when sort of like the heroes, like when the things that Livy loved were trying to kind of help her. What was that process like? Did you have to do some of that at the same time? Because it was really impactful, and like you hit the nail on the head for me anyway. And I'm a fully grown adult, but you definitely, I think you hit the nail on the head.
Well, thank you. That I'm very, very happy to hear that. I think I'm very lucky because I'm also an illustrator, and like illustrators, and I've been like, I went to art school to study it. We work a lot with metaphors, like visual metaphors. Like we're always trying to think about like communicating an idea, a story through using like visual metaphors. And so I applied those like to the story. I thought like this one thing to describe what anxiety is like, but what does it feel like? Like what does it look like visually? So it can feel like drowning, or like flailing in water, or it can feel like a huge boulder is running at you, or you know, coming at you. And so while I was writing the script, I already had the visuals kind of in my head. Like I had all these ideas of like, because sometimes like before I wrote this book, whenever I tried to like describe like what is anxiety like, it makes more sense to use analogies, right? So that someone can get a better idea. So like that's how it was already like in the process of writing. I would have these descriptions like Viola, Livy is like drowning, and like there's also, and she's flailing and so on. So I already knew what that would look like. And so I'm lucky in that regard, in that like it coincides with like my illustration work, I guess, to better like try to get someone like a reader to understand what a sensation, the sensation and the feeling, I guess, the emotional like feeling of anxiety, not just the things that are being said, but like literally how can it feel like in terms of your senses. So yes, it's always like something in the back of my mind.
Yeah. And so we read through all of the illustrations that you did before beginning this graphic novel. Were those types of illustrations, and I think you've done murals as well, is sort of the way you approach that type of art different from the way that you approached living with Viola?
It really depends on what the client is, I guess, asking for. Sometimes depending on what they may want. If it's a mural, sometimes they're like, we want you to encapsulate like a feeling, right? So whether it's a mural, can you encapsulate the feeling of this neighborhood? So I would like research like different landmarks or like activities that happen there. But then there are some, I've done like stories, like illustrate a story. And when I do that, that is actually closer, I would say, to like Living with Viola, where you're doing storytelling visually. The murals sometimes can be, yeah, it's just a different approach, I think, for different clients and different needs. So yeah, definitely murals are, I definitely find like capture a feeling of like, and it's usually like a happy feeling. But some of them are like, yeah, articles for newspapers, magazines, and they're like try to encapsulate this story without just, you know, literally drawing what's there, but like to create something new symbols and like revise new tropes and so on. And so that was definitely closer to Living with Viola.
Yeah, probably for like the pages, because there were a couple of pages there were no words at all. We're just kind of looking at the art of like Livy or Viola, just sort of like, so just going through it. Poor thing, she just went through it. So that's how I felt the entire book. I'm like, this poor girl is just stressed to the max. But she had some really great, she had some things that made her really happy, like reading, and when she went to the library, my librarian heart.
Yes.
I was really excited about that. Library, saving the day.
Always.
And she said she loved like sparkly plushies and things. And I saw a plushie in one of your pictures that you were showing. So did the happy things that, you know, sort of that Viola would try to use, or that Livy would try to use to combat Viola, are those some of the happy things in your life also?
Yeah, for sure. And you know, every person who has anxiety will have a different coping mechanism. You know, I'm hoping just to show them like this worked for Livy, also known as me. This worked for us, but I'm hoping that readers who do experience anxiety will find something that works for them. But for me, definitely, it was definitely like trying to surround myself with like incessant optimism and like brightness and like happiness. So whatever it is that made me happy, that brought joy, like I just had to keep doing it because it was something to offset that like persistent negativity of what anxiety is, right? Which is just, you know, fatalistic. And I'm just like, no, there are good things in life that are joyful. And I have to remind myself like that's what they are. And so, yeah, I love plushies. I love drawing. Going to the library is like my safe like haven wherever I love the library so much. Like whenever I travel and go to different cities and countries, I'm like, the bookstore and the library is just like I feel at home, even if I can't understand the language. I went to Tokyo and I was like, oh man, this library is so soothing. I can't read anything, but it doesn't matter. Like they're saying,
I love that.
It's so nice. Yeah. So I love books so much. Yeah, I just find it so like very calming. But anyways, yeah, so those are all things that help me very much, and I'm hoping that, you know, readers will find whatever works for them to surround themselves with it too. And there's also like Livy is, you know, there's a lot of like gendered expectations as well, like, oh, if you like plushies and pink things, that means you're girly. And I'm like, there's no such thing as girly. Like anyone can like a plushie, anyone can like pink is not, there's no gender in color. And so like there's also like the part of like, Livy, you like what you like, girl, read what you want. Don't make someone feel like it's not good enough because it's girly, right? It's the same thing with me. And also like I'm older adult, and sometimes like my mom's like, you have so many toys, and I'm like, I'm gonna keep buying toys.
And I'm gonna buy another one. What's that TikTok? I think there's like a TikTok that says like, I'm just a kid with adult money now. And
yes,
I think that
it's so true. 100%. I buy so many toys and plushies.
Oh my gosh. You buy toys, I buy yarn.
Yeah. So good. Yeah.
So I've got a question. This is a question for me. I don't know how many people have read this book. So one of the things that we do on the All CT Reads website is for each book, we scour the internet and we put together a bunch of support materials. So we'll hunt for discussion questions, podcasts, you know, just sort of whatever. I found a dumpling recipe. What's the story? Is this your recipe? Did your team do this? I want to make this. If I make it, will it be okay? I love dumplings.
Okay, so there's a scene in the book. One of Livy's coping mechanisms is to like cook with her mom and to make dumplings. That's literally because my mom taught me how to make dumplings when I was young. It's actually really easy. Although the story with that recipe is kind of funny. Okay, so when I was like, I don't know, 11 or 12, she's like, okay, let's make dumplings. And making dumplings is actually generally very communal. Like it's a lot of fun. You can do it with like yourself, but you can do it with lots of people. It's like, I find a lot of families do it together. I think it's like and friends, groups of friends do it together. It's just like a fun thing that you can do. And it's nourishing, so it's good. So when I was young, she taught me how. It's pretty easy. You can follow the recipe, but like you can buy like a package of like either wonton or dumpling wrappers at like the grocery store. And then like you make your own meat mixture. So the recipe is that meat mixture. And then I couldn't remember exactly what the recipe was. It's been a long time since I've made them because like I'm very lazy. So I usually buy frozen dumplings now. But so I remember texting my mom and being like, hey, I need to use this for like, I need your recipe. And my mom's recipes are terrible. She's like, okay, you need meat, green onion, and salt and pepper. And then I was like, what kind of meat?
Like pour until I say stop. My mom does that. She goes, add a little bit of, I'm like, how much, Mom? Oh gosh.
I had to grill her and then we had to like figure something out together. And I was like, what kind of meat? How much? What else am I supposed to put in there? Oh my gosh, she kills me. But it's not just that. It's like anytime I'm like, hey mom, I want to make this recipe. Just like, what do you do? And she gives me the barest like, just like mix this together, pour that, done.
Oh gosh.
But anyway, so the recipe should be good now. You can do that. Yeah,
so
it's
sad.
very tasty. And then the thing is like, you know, you can't really mess it up. It's going to be tasty no matter what. But yeah, definitely like I recommend doing it with friends, with family. It's just like a nice, like fun thing to do.
That's so great. So for libraries who have kitchens available or something like that, I mean, that sounds like a fun program. We haven't so much of librarians to get. Because I was scouring, I found a coloring sheet which I thought was cute.
Yes.
I was like, and I hadn't read the book yet, so I'm like, oh, whole dumpling recipe. And I was like, this has to be in the book somewhere. I don't understand what's going on. But I see what you say about the communal part because you know we do see that at the end also. You know, sort of like Livy's community coming together to do something. You know, sort of at the end of the book. So that's really lovely.
Yeah.
Wow. So I think my last question, so I don't know, like I assume we're both in the millennial age range. And at the time there weren't so many graphic novels. There were comics, there were comic strips, but they're not sort of the way that you have them and sort of other authors and illustrators. So who were some of your favorite illustrators growing up that sort of helped get you here?
Yes, good question. Yeah, when I was young, or when we were young, there was not a lot. I read a lot of Archie comics, as I said. Comic strips were definitely what I learned how to write a comic, like how to do that, like you know, building rising action and then like the punchline within like 4 panels. So like I've read so many of those. I still kind of write like that in a way, like the setup to and then the punchline. So I've read a lot of like Calvin and Hobbes, Garfield, For Better or For Worse was definitely one of my favorites. But as many as I could read. And then I would occasionally read like some superhero comic. I mean, that's what it was, right? It was either the comic strip or if it was like Marvel and DC, which are also really great. And I like reading some of them now, but when I was younger, it wasn't like, especially when I was like 10 or even younger, like 8, 9, 10, 11, it wasn't always, because a lot of them are geared towards like more like teen or adult, and I wasn't always comfortable with that, especially as like a young girl growing up, going through puberty and like being, and like, you know, not always the greatest representation of women. And so like I didn't find myself, so that was hard. So that's why like I was more towards comic strips and Archies for sure. Yeah, because they were a little bit more like comfortable at least. And so, you know, later in high school I would be reading manga, but again, like when we were growing up, manga was not as popular as it is now. It was so expensive because like for the translations, if I wanted to buy one, and you know manga usually is like volumes of like 20,
that one's gonna tell you nothing. It's like, here are all the characters, the end. Like,
it's not, I know. And then like it would cost like $25 for one or more, or 30 because of it was at the time more expensive import. And so like I couldn't read as much as them. But anyways, but now like I read so many graphic novels. So like Raina Telgemeier with her Smile and like Guts and all of her books like really revolutionized like middle grade graphic novels. I'm like indebted to her like legacy for doing that. But I love so many comics now. Like oh my god, I can't even start. Like I have like a whole pile.
That's the what's your favorite book question that just like ribbons
like I'm just so happy. I have so many of them right now. Oh my god, I love Be Prepared. Oh, you can't really see it, but like and then what else? I just read like Allergic. That was really
Allergic.
Good.
I've read that. So
good. Salt Magic just came out. So good.
Noted.
Yeah. Anyway, so many graphic novels now. I feel like I'm like so rich, like to be in a world that has so many incredible graphic novels. And that was the thing too, like the book that I wrote is kind of like the book that I wish I could have read when I was younger. I definitely didn't see a lot of comics for young girls, and especially not young Asian girls, like at all. I never saw myself. And so like I definitely wanted to write something for a younger me.
I love that. And the rest of us, thank you, because I'll tell you, it couldn't be me. Can't do it. I can read it. I can gush over it. That's
But
not
I
my
am
strength.
indebted to librarians and libraries, like so much, my entire life. Not just because of this book, but just because like, oh my God, I can't imagine a life without libraries. I really cannot. My whole life is, my childhood is like, I love libraries so much.
Gosh, and we
Yes.
love you too. If you're ever in Connecticut and you want to see some libraries, there's more libraries in towns, so it won't be hard to find one.
Okay, that is good to know.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Rosena, for your
you.
time and for your book, Everyone Living with Viola. We've got 12 book sets at the Service Center that can be booked for 365 days in advance. And, you know, Rosena, don't be shocked if you start getting some emails from, you know, young
Yay,
kids
I
or
hope
librarians
so.
in Connecticut.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.